very, very significant damage in the courtyard area of this hospital. It's called Baptist Hospital. It's in the center of Gaza City. The Palestinian president, the head of the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, has declared 3 days of mourning. He says all flags will be lowered to half staff because of the scale of the loss of life.
The Al-Ahli Baptist Hospital in Gaza City has been struck by an airstrike, killing anywhere between 200 to 500 people. Now, this was a hospital where injured Palestinians were recovering, but it was also a hospital that many other Palestinians were seeking refuge and shelter, thinking that it would not be targeted in any kind of attack. Now, the story is still developing and there are conflicting narratives about what actually transpired. And out of an abundance of caution, I will note that we should wait for an independent party to conduct an investigation, and we should not just believe what the IDF says, considering their track record of literally lying about certain instances of killing innocent people, including a Palestinian American journalist named Shireen Abu Akleh. But nonetheless, the IDF refuses to take responsibility for this, claiming that they did quick analysis just right away, determining that it was actually a misfired rocket coming from not Hamas, but from the Islamic Jihad, which is what they believe another terrorist organization operating out of the Gaza Strip. Now, an IDF spokesperson by the name of Jonathan Kornikis spoke to CNN, claiming that they had conducted an investigation showing that they are not, in fact, responsible for this. But I thought one of the follow-up questions asked by the CNN host here was a fascinating one, to say the least. I want to be clear that they have not released any evidence clearing them of doing an airstrike. But with that said, let's take a look at what this IDF spokesperson had to say on CNN.
We are aware of a barrage of rockets that was fired by terrorists from Gaza towards Israel, and that passed in close proximity to that hospital in Gaza at the time that it was hit. The intelligence that we have from multiple sources it indicates that the Islamic Jihad, another terrorist organization in Gaza, is responsible for a failed rocket launch that struck the hospital in Gaza.
Hundreds of people were killed. There is going to be enormous scrutiny on who was behind this strike. Are you willing to share the intelligence, the actual raw data with the world that indicates what you're saying, that this was Islamic Jihad and not the IDF?
We're in the progress of declassifying. I cannot promise yet that we will, but maybe because of the importance and because of what is at stake here, that may happen. If it's believing the IDF or believing Hamas, I think it should be clear for anybody involved that they should believe the IDF.
Now, I want to be clear that we have condemned Hamas and their terror attacks on Israeli civilians on this show. I have no problem doing so. And I wouldn't take what Hamas has to say at face value either. However, I think it would be a mistake to just take what the IDF has to say at face value, considering, again, they have a track record of lying about the attacks that they have conducted in the Gaza Strip. I want to remind you one more time of what happened to Palestinian American journalist Shireen Abu Akleh, who was killed by an Israeli sniper. They denied that that was the case, and multiple investigations did in fact place the blame on the IDF, despite their denials of that assassination, essentially. But Cenk, what are your thoughts on what's currently transpiring here?
So let me be clear. I don't believe the IDF. Oh, wow, what a big scandalous thing to say. Like in the old days in America, you couldn't say things like that. You couldn't even say when we first started the Young Turks that you don't believe the Pentagon. We would say that on air and people would be outraged. So why don't I believe the IDF? First of all, IDF has a history of hitting civilian targets, a lot of them, and always saying that it was an accident. Or it wasn't us, it was someone else. And so when you have a track record of doing it, that's relevant to the consideration. I also, that is what almost all of the government, different governments do when they make a mistake or they do something horrible, including our government. I've seen the Pentagon do this exact kind of lie dozens of times, and we've shown it to you on the show. One that I remember very distinctly was when we bombed a wedding in Afghanistan. And the Pentagon comes out and says, no, we didn't bomb the. Are you saying that you trust the Taliban over the American government, right? Yeah, no, in that case, it's not about trusting the Taliban. It's about, no, you bombed the wedding. And later, of course, everybody confirmed that we bombed the wedding. You see, the reason the Pentagon, the IDF, and all the governments in the world lie to you in the beginning is to basically neutralize how damaging that news story is. They do overwhelming propaganda, and they send out their spokespeople and go, do you believe the terrorists? I've seen that trick 2,000 times over. That doesn't mean I don't have an open mind. Of course I have an open mind. If they prove that it was someone else, then we'll come out back here and tell you, it turns out that mystery was solved and it was Islamic Jihad or something else. But for the moment being, it looks very much like it's IDF. And by the way, well played on the propaganda, because it gets at least everyone, including us, to go, maybe it wasn't the IDF. Congratulations on propaganda, well done. But we're gonna look at all the facts and give you all the facts. I've got more reasons why I think it was IDF, but go ahead, Anna.
So one of the other excuses that we often see from the Israeli government and the Israeli Defense Forces is, well, we had to do the strike against the school that had civilians or the hospital that had civilians because Hamas is using Palestinians as human shields. They'll use that as a justification. And Cenk, you mentioned the Pentagon, which is an interesting thing for you to mention, especially since there is now a video going around on social media featuring the Pentagon spokeswoman. Her name is Sabrina Singh, and she is saying, and I quote verbatim, Hamas is the one putting Palestinians, those in Gaza, at great risk. They are putting command and control units inside hospitals. How about don't bomb the hospitals?
How about you just admitted that you did bomb the hospital, and now you're saying, well, they made us bomb the hospital. So make up your mind, America and Israel, the governments of those, not the civilians, but the governments of those countries. Do you have an excuse for why you bombed the hospital? Or you didn't bomb the hospital? Which one is it? Because it's not both. It's not both. Why did you go out there and telling everybody, no, it's okay to bomb the hospital? It's okay. Are you saying it was okay for Islamic Jihad to accidentally bomb the hospital? Make up your mind, make up which lie and propaganda you're gonna go with.
So I've been following this story very closely since it broke this morning. And I noticed how it kind of played out on social media and how the reactions to the story by allies of Israel and members of the IDF, like how their reaction to it changed throughout the day. So at first, there seemed to be a lot of excuses in regard to Israel allegedly conducting this airstrike. A lot of claims similar to what you heard from the Pentagon spokeswoman, saying that, well, Hamas likes to use these areas and these places where you have a large number of Palestinian civilians and they use them as human shields, just basically justifying the attack. But the media response to it was incredibly critical. So much so that I think that maybe, this is my read of it, and I could be wrong. I wanna be clear about what we know in terms of the facts and what we're speculating on. This is what I'm speculating on. I'm speculating that once Israeli officials saw that the reaction and response to a possible Israeli airstrike on a hospital was a very negative one, all of a sudden tweets got deleted and the narrative changed. All of a sudden, immediately, the IDF, which apparently did not have the intelligence necessary to prevent a Hamas terrorist attack a little over a week ago, had all of the information necessary to determine that they were clear of any wrongdoing. Interesting, okay. I wanna share some of the tweets that I'm referring to. So these are two tweets that have been deleted. One of them features a Netanyahu appointed digital spokesperson who tweeted the following after the hospital suffered this strike. Breaking, Israeli Air Force struck a Hamas terrorist base inside a hospital in Gaza. A multiple number of terrorists are dead. It's heartbreaking that Hamas is launching rockets from hospitals, mosques, schools, and using civilians as human shields.
Sounds like Israel bombed a hospital until it was inconvenient. And then all of a sudden, no we didn't. It was the other dastardly Islamic Jihad that popped out of nowhere. Okay.
So that tweet was deleted. I wasn't even gonna bring it up on the show because I needed confirmation that this person actually did tweet this. There's a lot of misinformation going around. We have to be very careful, right? However, someone asked this individual, why'd you delete this tweet? And he did not deny deleting the tweet. He said, instead he deflected saying, how about your friends in Al Jazeera that also deleted their tweet of accusing Israel? Al Jazeera published this tweet saying the IDF warned people. The IDF spokesperson called them out as liars and they deleted their tweet.
In other words, you did delete the tweet and you're trying to distract people with a rando comment about Al Jazeera. Who cares what Al Jazeera said?
Now, Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, also deleted a tweet. I want to be clear that this tweet is from yesterday. You can see the date on it. It's October 16th. Today is the 17th. I say that because it's important to know this wasn't something that he tweeted out after the hospital was hit, but it gives you a sense of where Netanyahu's mind is. And it also gives you a sense of why he deleted it, okay? So he wrote, this is a struggle between the children of light and the children of darkness, between humanity and the law of the jungle.
Are you kidding me? The Prince of Darkness said, get out of here. So this guy who's up on corruption charges, tried to ruin Israeli democracy, didn't do his job, let Israel get bombed. Hamas today is saying they were surprised at their success. They didn't want a broader war. You take Hamas also with the biggest boulder of salt that you could imagine. Don't get us twisted. We're not doing propaganda for either side, unfortunately, like some media. But some of the media actually has been pretty good so far here. So I don't take Hamas at face value at all, okay, at all. Their leaders are at least as much liars as any government in the world. But Hamas is saying now, at least, we don't want a broader war. Easy to say after you did your killings and now you're being attacked. I understand all of that. But having said that, they said they were surprised at how weak the Israeli defenses were. They were just going in to take hostages. They didn't know that they were going to be able to overwhelm Israeli defenses. Again, take it with a grain of salt, okay? But Netanyahu didn't do his job.
He did not.
Okay, they were not at all ready. They didn't have the intelligence. The military was not in a position to defend. Going on the offense is easy. You drop bombs on hospitals. They don't have Iron Dome, you do. You drop bombs on buildings. No one's disputing that they're dropping bombs on residential buildings. That part is easy, okay? Yep. Defending your people is hard, and he didn't do his job. And all he ever does is cause more and more conflict and war. When is Israel going to realize, and maybe the answer is soon, that the actual Prince of Darkness is Netanyahu? And that is in the context of, if you want safety for Israel, let alone if you care about being decent and humane to Palestinians.
That's exactly right. And look, I really want to emphasize that there's a lot of attention being paid to what happened to this hospital, considering the high death toll. And it's just jarring, it's shocking. But I would not put it past the Israeli government under the leadership of Benjamin Netanyahu, a far right prime minister, to carry out an attack like this, given the brutality that Palestinian civilians have been facing in Gaza since the beginning of this latest war. So just to provide the receipts in regard to residential buildings being targeted, an airstrike in Deir al-Balah reduced a house to rubble, killing a man and 11 women and children inside and in a neighboring house, some of whom had evacuated from Gaza City. Witnesses said there was no warning before the strike. Also, shelling from Israeli tanks hit a UN school in central Gaza, where 4,000 Palestinians had taken refuge, killing 6 people and wounding dozens. The United Nations Palestinian Refugee Agency said. At least 24 United Nations installations have been hit in the past week, killing at least 14 of the agency's staff. There is no precision. There are indiscriminate airstrikes taking place. The fact that there is a humanitarian blockade without any chance of food or water entering, the Gaza Strip, tells you everything you need to know about the lack of concern for human life, innocent civilians. You can't live without water. Water is life. They know that, and they are continuing with the blockade anyway.
Yeah, so look guys, we'll sort out. I don't want people walking away thinking that we know with 100% certainty. We just told you. We just told you. And here I'll add two more things, and then I'll summarize. Okay. Look, Mahmoud Abbas desperately wants to meet with Joe Biden to make his case. He's the leader of the Palestinians in the West Bank, not the Gaza Strip. Okay, and Biden is going to Israel, but Abbas pulled out from that meeting because of how outraged he was about the hospital strike. If he thought there was some percentage chance that it was not Israel, he wants that meeting with Biden badly. So it's possible he's wrong. It's possible that he's responding to local pressure, etc. But that is another sign. The third sign is usually they blame each other back and forth, but there's some reasons why Hamas things can be verified. The fact that they said it's Islamic Jihad instead of Hamas, it could be true. Like we don't know with 100% certainty, right? But to me, that's another sign of, well, if we say it's Hamas, it could be verified that it wasn't. So we'll pick a rando group and pretend that it's them. Again, this is the propaganda that all governments do when they do something wrong, and they especially do it in the first 2 days because they want you to only remember the cloudy, I can't tell who did it, and then once it's passed out of the news cycle, then they can come back later and say, oh yeah, mistakes were made, who cares, etc. Right? So I'd be shocked if the IDF released evidence. But if they do, again, we'll come back out here and tell you, okay? And we'll make sure to do that. But okay, so.
But even so, I want to be clear that it's important to have an independent third party conduct an investigation, right?
Of course, and
I wouldn't believe it if the Islamic Jihad came out and said, no, we are not responsible for this. Like, you need an independent party to come out and do the investigation and figure out what's really transpiring. By the way, there are all sorts of videos floating around the internet indicating that Israel has released footage showing that it was in fact a rocket from the Islamic Jihad. We don't know what time that video was taken. We don't know which part of Gaza that video was taken in. There's a lot of information that is missing from those posts. So just be very careful with what you believe.
By the way, there's also videos that show a sound that only the Israeli warplanes make, but I don't know that that's true either. I mean, just seeing a video on Twitter doesn't prove anything. So, all right, now last thing. Guys, there's already 3,000 civilians dead and over 10,000 injured. So, does it make it better, let's say, if the IDF killed the other 3,000, but somehow the hospital wasn't them? Does that make it way better? I don't think it does. And they hit a bus, they hit a school, and they're threatening to hit a lot more targets. And at what point does it stop becoming an accident? 3,000 accidents? What if 10,000 were killed? What if 100,000 were killed? When does it stop being an accident and be intentional killing of civilians? So, and then finally, the moral culpability here of the occupation, I think, should be stated every time. So, not except for when Hamas did their initial brutal attack, wasn't necessarily the time to talk about that. And it's not a justification for that attack. That attack was brutal and awful and barbaric. But when you're talking about the big picture of what is going wrong in this region, there is one overwhelming answer. Millions of people are occupied in open air prisons, and they've been occupied for over 50 brutal years. You cannot justify that under any circumstance. You can't come and tell me, no, all Palestinians are savages, all Palestinians are anti-Semites. I don't like who they picked as their leader. They should pick the guy I want as their leader. And otherwise, I'm going to keep them under lock and key and with no rights, no nothing. And I'm going to bomb their civilians whenever I want. And I'm going to justify it. And then I'm going to cut off their water and electricity. If you think, and there's so many disingenuous people online now. Oh, it's not really an occupation. Oh, they let it go in 2005, 6, 7. Oh, and then they had the election in 7. So it's not an occupation. Who are you kidding? If you know you're occupied when you don't control your own water and electricity. That's the most obvious thing in the world, let alone your own borders, let alone having your own state. Israel, at some point, you have to let them go. If you don't,
they're not. They're
sorry, but that makes you the bad guys. So that doesn't mean vis-a-vis Hamas. It just means period. Period. When we invaded Iraq, America did, we were the bad guys. We invaded a country that did not attack us, and hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians died. That's on us, okay? When you do a brutal occupation of millions of people for 56 long, horrible years, that's on you. So stop making excuses and end the goddamn occupation.
Thanks for watching the video, guys. We also love it if you hit the join button below, because that makes you a member, and members allow us to be independent, honest. We can be as progressive as we want, no corporate media influence, and that's all because of you guys. We love doing the show with our members. Hit the join button, become one of the Young Turks.